was Undine, of course, who, bored by lack of attention, decided to practice her ventriloquism, which she had been studying for some time from a sixpenny book. Aside from that, except for the human remains, it was a beautiful occasion. Preparations had begun far in advance. First, there had been the cake. The wedding cake must be laid down least 6 months before the nuptials, Mrs. Mullet had said, waving a batter-coated wooden spoon at me in the kitchen. Else the marriage'll be poisoned. The mention of poison captured my undivided attention. What kind of poison? I asked. The worst kind. The poison of leaving things to be done on the spur to the moment. Just look at that Lucy Havers as was, and then talk to me about daring the devil. Left it till the day before her wedding to have a cake baked at that bun shop in Inley, if you can credit it, and look what happened to her. I raised my eyebrows in a what happened to her signal. Her husband, one of them Simmonses he was, run off with a tart from the bun shop the day after they got home from their honeymoon in Hastings. If it were me, I'd have run off with an apple pie, I said, pretending I didn't understand her meaning, a tactic I am increasingly forced to employ in order to protect my alleged innocence. Mrs. Mullet smiled at my modesty. Like I said, a wedding fruitcake must be laid down 6 months ahead of time and left to sleep in the larder till required, she said, returning to her theme. Mrs. Mullet could be uncommonly informative when allowed to lecture uninterrupted, and I pulled up a chair to listen. Like laying the keel of a battleship, she went on. You mustn't leave it till the enemy's in sight. Who's the enemy? I asked. The groom? Mrs. Mullet laid a forefinger alongside her nose in the ancient sign of secrecy. That's for every woman to find out for herself, she said, tapping the finger and causing her nose to give off an alarming hollow knocking sound. She lowered her voice. Until she does, she needs all the spells she can get to keep away the old ones. The old ones? This was becoming truly interesting. First poisons, and now malevolent supernatural spirits, and it wasn't yet 10 o'clock in the morning. Mrs. Mullet was now scraping the batter out of the bowl and into a large cake pan. Here, let me help you, I said, reaching for the oven door. Not yet, Mrs. Mullet said, surprisingly short-tempered. First things first, grab an handful of them sticks and toss 'em on top of the fire. In the basket there, she added, pointing with the spoon, as if I hadn't seen them. A wicker basket beside the cooker was half filled with a tangle of twigs and branches. Run a bit of water in the sink, she said. We want some good and damp. I did as I was told. To make steam? I asked, wondering how the steam was going to find its way from the firebox to the oven chamber. Something like that, Mrs. Mullet said, as I opened the firebox and threw the wet wood on top of the fire. And something else besides. Again, the finger beside the nose. Protection, I guessed. Against the enemy? That's right, dear, Mrs. Mullet said. Hazel and hawthorn. I gathered 'em with my own hands in gibbet wood. Now, one more thing and we're ready to pop in the cake. She pulled a sprig of needled leaves from the pocket of her apron. Rosemary, I exclaimed. I recognized it from the kitchen garden. That's right, dear, Mrs. Mullet said again, as the warm, spicy odour of the herb filled the kitchen. To remind Miss Ophelia of her home and all them as have ever loved her. Rosemary in the oven for the cake, and rosemary in her bouquet. It also helps keep off the hobgoblins. I thought rosemary was for funerals, I said. I remembered that because Daffy was always quoting Shakespeare. And so it is, dear. Funerals and weddings both. That's why it's such an handy herb to have round the house.